The story of Dragon Ball Super Hero takes place right before the ending of the original Dragon Ball Z manga, and may be one of the final Dragon Ball Super branded stories that is told before moving on to the clear next stage, with the likes of a now godly Oob, a much stronger Broly, and Black Frieza. This story can be seen as the final attempt to power up two of the main characters that were severely falling behind Goku and Vegeta in battle strength, that of course being Gohan and Piccolo. With Goku and Vegeta off-world after the Granola arc and their brief interactions with Frieza, they can now both be seen taking their training more seriously, adding in the former legendary Super Saiyan Broly to their squad. This means all future Dragon Ball stories will have Broly on the same side as Goku and Vegeta. This feels like a dream timeline, but it's actually pretty cool how they've set this up. Obviously, with the strength of Black Frieza, Goku and Vegeta are going to need all the help and more specifically power they can get. Broly is primarily there for that reason, and he still seems to have a long way to go before he could begin competing with Ultra Ego and Ultra Instinct, but he was the favoured option by Goku to reach out to, instead of two people he knew very well and not once considered bringing up to Beerus' planet, Gohan and Piccolo. These two characters received an even bigger power-up than anything we've ever seen before, relative to where they were before. Dragon Ball Super Hero begins with a mini time skip that shows an aged up Pan and new designs for Goten and Trunks. This is some in-universe evidence showing the Super era closing in on the end of Z. But this also coincides with Toriyama's comments in the recent release of the Superhero Annie manga that this story in particular is right before the final chapters of Dragon Ball Z, meaning that this is it. If we are to take these comments seriously, there cannot be another big story arc after the events of Super Hero, and the next arc will be something to do with the end of Z, and the whole point of Super was slowly setting up the universe to extend beyond the point of the original manga. Toyotaro is set to return with Super on the 20th of December 2022, this month, and is telling a prequel story involving the aged up Goten and Trunks prior to the events that take place in Super Hero. This is starting to make sense. There cannot be another arc that takes place after Super Hero because it would more than likely run into the end of Z. Gohan and Piccolo both got new forms, showcasing that they are able to compete with any of Super's past threats and finally puts them on a level with the main cast, and is their Ultra Instinct / Ultra Ego tier transformation. Right as the 10-year window of Super is closing, they get powered up as the story looks to head towards the end of Z. It's also kind of ironic that all of Dragon Ball Super has been made to fit inside this 10-year time gap, directly after the Majin Buu arc and before the 28th World Tournament. Dragon Ball Super has also been going on now, if you count Battle of Gods as the genesis, for an equivalent real-time, real-world 10 years. This is all to say that we are going beyond the end of Z. An illustration of Goten and Trunks wearing superhero-style suits has been unveiled for the first time, returning for a prequel story not directly involving Goku and Vegeta. Even though this is a prequel, it will still take place after the Granola arc, as Goten and Trunks are both aged up. This will hopefully fill in some detail that the movie did not address, such as Goku talking Broly into training at Beerus' home, and in all, it looks to be an arc that will bridge the gap between now and the end of Z. As stated before, there's a reason this is a prequel and not some arbitrary new arc taking place after the end of Super Hero. Sort of like how Moro took place directly after the Broly movie, they couldn't do that again because it would run into the end of Z. It's pretty clear now that this is where they're going, and I like to have a pretty clear picture on the timeline of what's really happening with Dragon Ball, because they are very vague about it, and it's good to have some clarity, and it's slowly starting to come together. Dragon Ball has always had this way of looking like it had this amazing foreshadowing, when really it was just kind of aligned perfectly for Toriyama as he was making it up. This time, I just can't see the last chapters of the original manga being rewritten to fit in more with Super. That could be what they do, but it feels disrespectful to the original work, and to be honest, it doesn't need that much changing. Black Frieza is still out there. Goku picks up Oob for that reason, in the same way he would do with Broly and train him under those circumstances. This would contradict his reasoning in the original manga and would not be in line with Vegeta's reaction at all, as he knows about Black Frieza as well and wouldn't have to ask why Goku wants to train Oob and why is he singling out this kid out of anyone. Goku also probably wouldn't train Oob back in his village, as was implied, and would likely take him to Beerus' homeworld, as he now does have Godly Ki. Admittedly, there would be a few things in the final 2 chapters of Dragon Ball that would need slight adjusting to fit completely, but overall, it actually fits perfectly with what Dragon Ball Super has managed to do. There's been no major deaths in DBS, in fact it's only been growth in terms of power and additions to the cast and verse. In the second to last chapter of the Dragon Ball Z manga, released in 1995, Goku is training with Goten and says to Bulma that he last saw her 5 years ago, in between training trips. This is only a minor contradiction that I think can fairly easily be overlooked. We know Goku's not great with numbers. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Vegeta then asks Goku why all of a sudden is he interested in registering for the next World Martial Arts Tournament, and Goku replies by saying that a strong human fighter will be there. This also fits without having to change anything at all, as Vegeta doesn't really know of Oob yet, even though they were briefly connected during the Moro arc. In the final chapter of Dragon Ball Z, Goku gets matched up to fight with Oob, who is so nervous he can barely speak. That is until Goku calls his mom fat and a poopy pants. Then Oob's power begins to slowly come out. Goku then stops mid-fight to tell Oob that he wants to spend the next couple of years training him to develop and bring out his latent power. He states, "I'll come live with you and teach you. Pretty soon, you'll be the one protecting the Earth." And that's kind of where the Dragon Ball Z story ends. Again, this is something that can be overlooked when working it in with Super, and actually going over the final 2 chapters in the manga again, it doesn't actually need to be changed that much. It's vague enough to be worked around and not as big of a problem as I originally thought if you just go by the manga. With the recent comments by Akira Toriyama, Dragon Ball is about to enter a new paradigm. We will be going beyond the end of Z. If you are a Dragon Ball fan and you've lived long enough to see this day, congratulations. It still will be a ways away, there's another prequel arc to go through first, but there are very real intentions to continue this story beyond Toriyama's original ending. However they decide to do it, it means that Dragon Ball is going to be fundamentally changing. We are right there, right at the end of Z.